Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our webinar, Hope and Inspiration Through Goal Setting. I'm your moderator, Kristen Willard, and I'm the Vice President of Population Health and Care Delivery at the COPD Foundation. Ms. Stephanie Williams is our Director of Community Programs, and she's going to start us off by talking about why goal setting is important in light of the changes in lifestyle, changes in planning, and the emotional challenges brought on by COPD. Okay, let's get started with Stephanie Williams. Stephanie, I will turn the conversation over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're so excited that you chose to join us today. We have many people who have joined in on this presentation today and many who will view it in the future. And each one of you is at a different place in your ability to live your life to its fullest, to have acceptance of living with COPD. And some of you may have even just recently been diagnosed, and maybe you're wondering if your life will ever be normal again. Some have known about your diagnosis for a while, but maybe you're just learning about the different tools and therapies that can really be helpful and improve your quality of life. And for some people, it may be feeling a little down because they think of all the things they can't do anymore. So if you spend time or much time at all on COPD 360 social discussion groups or other COPD support groups, you'll find that there are many, many people living with COPD who are doing some pretty amazing things. And we want to change the I can't statements into more I can statements. There's a lot of power in your words. So saying your goals out loud and writing them down give you a connection to those goals that's pretty powerful. So you focus on the things you can do. It might be a change that goes something like this. So instead of saying, I used to be able to clean my house all in one day, but I can't do that anymore. Try this. I can get my house clean by tackling little chores every day. Give yourself permission to adapt. And I want to say that one more time. Give yourself permission to adapt. That permission provides the platform you need to move forward. So the second thing is to determine your priorities. Think about what's important to you. What would you really like to accomplish? Setting a goal and writing it down changes that from a dream into a goal. And having the goal set before you will give you the motivation you need to start doing something to move you toward that goal. So I'm going to let you in on a little secret here. Even the most positive people in the whole world occasionally have negative thoughts. One of the things that help people succeed in achieving goals is that they don't spend very much of their time dwelling on those thoughts, the negative ones. Those thoughts usually try to creep in. Things like your goal might seem like an impossible task, or you may have some personal limitations. But there are things that you can do to keep moving in the direction you want to go. It may be that you just need to break your big goals down into smaller goals. If that's the case, then you just make the change in your strategy. You adapt, but you keep your focus clear. So what are your thoughts about goal setting? I think if we're all honest, we sometimes have both positive and negative thoughts about our goals. But personally, when I can see my goal clearly, it gives me confidence and a sense of purpose. And when I formulate my plan, I have that feeling of, look out world, nothing's going to stop me now. When you think positively, you set yourself up for success. As we move through the remainder of the webinar today, these things are going to be discussed in more detail. But let's set the stage for these next portions and think about these things. Changing our focus, using more I can statements and focusing on what can be controlled. We are individuals and our goals are too. And just think, what new skill or talent might you find along your way? You might learn something new, you might create something or invent something. The possibilities are really exciting. So as I turn the presentation over to Jane, I just want to leave you with a little motivation. You're probably familiar with the old saying, a rolling stone gathers no moss. Well, I know it's a little easy to get mossy when you have a chronic condition, but I want to encourage you to get rolling, clear off the moss, and set some goals for yourself.
Well, hi, everybody.
Now that we've talked about why it's important to set goals and how it can help, let's talk a little bit about the nuts and bolts of setting goals. So how do you start in order to give yourself the best shot at success? We start out with what matters most to you. It's important to understand that the goals we're talking about today are personal, as Stephanie was saying. In other words, they're all about what you want to do to either keep or improve your quality of life. For example, for somebody who's becoming increasingly isolated, maybe because of shortness of breath, using supplemental oxygen, or a pesky cough, they might be out of touch with their friends. It might be a real problem for them to be so isolated. So it might mean a lot to them to do something like get out into the coffee shop and meet with their friends. I know a lot of people do that. They go to McDonald's and they meet like every week, and it's really a highlight of their week. So that means a lot to that person. For another person, that might not have any special meaning at all. Another example might be of somebody who loves to go to the ranch, maybe ride horses. I didn't have a picture of a person on a horse, but here you can see a man with a cowboy hat with supplemental oxygen who has a goal to get back on his horse. And I know it can be done. I know they do it in California. They get up on the horse and they hook their oxygen up to the saddle horn and they go. So ask yourself, what matters most to me and what is it that I want to do? And doing this will help you get started on thinking about your goals. So where do I start and how do I start? Well, let's start by narrowing it down a little bit. Does your goal involve physical fitness directly, such as a goal of being able to walk around the block, to exercise on your treadmill for more than 10 minutes or whatever? If it's strictly a physical fitness goal, that's one thing. Or does it involve physical fitness or some other kind of activity indirectly, such as a goal of being able to attend a Little League baseball game, which would involve walking from your car to the bleachers, and that would involve being fit enough to do that walk. So another thing to think about, is it a short-term goal or a long-term goal? And I call the long-term goals event goals. One example of a short-term goal might be to go out on a bike ride with your friend or family member. Just get on a bike and ride around and be able to do that. That's a great goal. And this goal would be pretty closely related to improved physical fitness, probably. Another example of a short-term goal would be to work and finish a jigsaw puzzle. I happen to love working puzzles, and I know how happy I am and I feel accomplished when it's all put together. And when I was working in pulmonary rehab, I had some patients who really enjoyed doing their jigsaw puzzles, and it was a goal, and it was a fun activity and a sense of accomplishment. Now, an example of a long-term goal might be to attend a specific event, say such as a wedding, a christening, a family reunion, a graduation. So here we see just some possible examples. A grandpa holding a newborn baby. Perhaps he's glad that he's there when the baby was born, and that was a goal for him many years ago. A grandma attending a wedding reception with her grandson, the groom. We all like to go to weddings, and it's a big deal in our families. And sometimes someone in your family or someone you know gets an advanced degree or a special job, and that's also an event goal, to celebrate that with a loved one. So now that we've talked about some things to consider before setting a goal, let's get right down to business and talk about stating a goal. In order to have the best chance of achieving your goal, It helps to have it written down and be specific. So here's a guideline for writing a goal. Who will do what, how well, and by when? And the first time I heard our physical therapist talk about this, I thought, what? This is like, what is she talking about? This is a lot to say. And all you really need to do is say, I want to do such and such. But I learned from her and our patients that stating it this way really does help. And it's easy to do if you break it down. So let's just break it down, keeping in mind this picture at the bottom of the screen, or this sentence at the bottom of the screen. Who is I will be able to do what? Walk around the block with control over my breathing. That's how well. By when? By the first day of spring. Now, the how well part is really important, especially if you have COPD, because I'm sure you all know that you can push yourself to do something, really push yourself, and you can probably get it done, but doing so can leave you gasping for breath and really worn out for the rest of the day. So the how well part, when you have COPD or some other breathing trouble, would involve still being able to breathe and breathe comfortably and not be totally done in after you've completed your goal. So keep this in mind, and you can do this by using your pursed lip breathing, remembering to pace yourself, or resting if you need to. So the idea is to accomplish your goal and still feel pretty good after you've accomplished it. Another aspect of setting a goal is accountability. You're less likely to stop working toward a goal or give up on it if you tell somebody about it. So who can you tell? Well, tell anyone you choose, but here are a few things to consider. It should be somebody who can give you encouragement or suggestions, but won't criticize you. Somebody who has some kind of understanding about the limitations brought on by living with COPD. And on our online community, on the COPD Foundation website, you can find a lot of encouragement and friendly people who understand the kinds of things you're going through on our 360 social online community. It's a great place to go. We'll talk about that in a little bit. You could also share your goals with a person in your rehab class, your pulmonary rehab class, your breathing support group, or your Harmonicas for Health group. Folks who are familiar with some of the same things you're going through. Another person you can tell is the healthcare professional who works with you at exercise class at pulmonary rehab. I'm sure they would love to encourage you with a goal, and they understand they see what you're going through. Or it could just be an understanding family member who you know can be your champion and is aware of your limitations. So, what if you're not able to achieve your goal? Well, first of all, don't be too discouraged and do not be too hard on yourself. Then once you decide that you're not going to be too discouraged, ask yourself, well, why didn't this work? Was it just too much for me? Was it too ambitious? Maybe it was. And by not being able to accomplish a goal that was too ambitious, you learned something. Did you lose interest in it? If you lost interest in it, maybe it wasn't the right goal for you. Maybe it wasn't the right activity. We all do better and stick with things better if we like what we're doing. So always keep that in mind too when you're setting a goal. Or was it some other reason? For example, you sprained your ankles so you can't work on your walking and increasing your distance. And sometimes things just happen that are completely out of our control, and that's the way that is. So again, just sit back, look at the situation, figure out what went wrong, what didn't happen, and then go on. But again, don't give up. And then either modify that goal or start with a new one. Just like this sheep who was very thirsty and he didn't see a pond and he just figured out how he was going to get water and he didn't stop until he accomplished it. So, setting a goal can give you hope. It can give you something to strive towards, something that helps either keep or improve your quality of life. And sharing a goal with others can help them be inspired too. And in turn, by them sharing their goals with you, you can be inspired.